we've designed it ADA compliant.
Exactly.
Different things. Gotcha.
As far as using that area, I think it makes the most sense to bring the town clerk up there. If it was a question of bringing the assessor or the building department, well, the assessor's already down here. So it's really not part of it.
No, that wasn't the part. It was
I'm
more
just saying.
the building department is the
Yeah, I'm
next
saying,
one.
but I think.
Administrative is more a second floor thing in most of these places, and then you have the public service counters.
Right, but I'm saying that the town clerk office is probably the most used public access office. It should be, and I was amazed, I just spent a few weeks in Groton working for an access window for their assessor's office. I'm amazed at how many people interact with the assessor's office in a day. It's a steady flow in that town, which I was very surprised. And I would be surprised if the building department we could check how many visits a day, but I'd be surprised if they get as many that they get down in that assessor's department. Because everything that goes through the building department eventually goes to the assessor as well. You know, before new permits are signed off, the assessors go out and reevaluate.
It varies. Our building
Yes.
department you have to also include is also the Board of Health. I mean, it's
Right.
it's not just one office. So that's all I meant.
Yeah, but and so they do have a good bit of space up there already too. They have, they have the back office for the building and the front desk and a couple desks in there, a good bit of room, so.
Well, we have the cemetery commission in there
Yeah.
too, and
But-
I
but
mean,
I'm
we
saying
have
it's-
like 3 or
but-
4 different
yeah,
desks
but
in that
but
room.
it's a large area they have up there.
So that's.
I think they'd be reducing space if they came downstairs.
So it's actually the first move that we're working on right now, so the former IT director's office, we've cleaned out that office, I have a computer on order for there, and we're gonna be moving the cemetery
Oh, okay.
office into there, because they do work hand in hand with the veterans office, so it's almost a natural fit for them to go, plus it takes her, basically right now, her storage, or her files are being kept in a closet that's kind of a retrofitted office, that isn't really an office, because there's no power, there's no internet there, so at least this will give her a good space to work. We cleaned out that office last
You
week.
mean up in the Board of Health side up across from your office,
So yeah, as soon as you come out. of my
Moving
office-
cemetery.
Cemetery.
into that area?
Yep.
Okay.
So at least that's kind of really pre-phase one, just so we can get her, a little bit of elbow room.
Okay. So yeah, I guess I'd follow up with the request to go ahead and start your review with the department heads, develop a plan or a concept
Yep.
at whatever level you think you're comfortable, and then represent to the
And
board.
then let you guys know what I think, a cost would be to move to kind of like the next.
Yeah, redesign, and,
Phase.
there's gonna be, hopefully not too much major wall redesigning, but even if we move the clerk up to that floor, there's gonna be a certain need for some petitioning and equipment and, computer technology. There's gonna be some sort of drops and power requirements and things like that we need to really think about before we move anything. But good idea to lay out what the real costs are gonna be and how we actually do it. How do we move them up there in a seamless effort? That's going to be the challenge,
Yeah.
because that's a lot of records and a lot they do.
The only other thing I would add to that is when you're developing it is to look for that room to grow.
Yeah.
We're talking about potential part-time event coordinator, something else. So just keep that in mind. Okay, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. What department is likely to grow, even if it's by one member or a half member, and okay, are we giving them the space to do that?
Okay.
I'm not saying it's a major issue, but, because I don't expect us to have a
And I
3 or
like
4 person growth spurt in the near future, but it's possible.
And I like the idea of some sort of multi-purpose room. Maybe it could be a second meeting room or a use by department head room for whatever, training room. I like that idea, if we can fit a space in for that someplace. And reach out to the planning board and see if they are interested in using this room and why they don't on their Tuesday night meetings, because maybe they just like it there, or maybe there's a reason. I wonder why they don't take advantage of this room when it's here, to be, on the internet and have the meetings available to other people, because I agree. One meeting I did attend up there, they had like 4 or 5 people in the hallway, and the table's tiny. The room is a fifth or a sixth of the size of that. It's tiny. I'm curious why they don't come down here, and I would love to see them come down here.
I'll reach out to them.
Thank you.
Have anything to add?
Yeah, if we did have another meeting room, smaller one, that's lightly used, it might be interesting to have it be available for if people from the community wanted to maybe pay a nominal fee, or we donate the time, that if a group wanted to have a space to meet, like the basement room in the library, good resource for people in town to be able to utilize if,
Something a little smaller than taking the whole town hall over,
right,
if they don't need as much space.
you know,
It's a good idea.
12 people, 20 people or less, or something like that. They need, someone wants to use it for a few hours, if there's time, might be a good resource for people in town.
Okay.
Something to think about anyway.
Yep, that's a good idea, because, I mean, somebody might balk at looking at renting the Henry Woods, the town hall, I mean, for anything, because they have, 10 people, and the room can hold 180 or whatever the capacity is. If you have a small group and have some sort of regular meeting, maybe somebody would pick up on a regular basis at, like I said, a nominal fee of 20 or 25 bucks or something simple.
Yeah, certainly better than going to Dunkin'.
Yeah, and
For
so
that,
they can sit
yeah.
privately and have that
Sit
discussion,
privately,
somebody that
have-
doesn't have the
They're gonna
area.
force you to buy a coffee if you go there.
Wow.
But yes, I understand.
We
I
can
would
put a
like to, I would
Keurig
like
in
to
there.
see
I mean.
something like that if it's in the
There's
cards.
there's a selling point, there'd be a Keurig machine. They gotta bring
No,
their
that's a
own
good idea.
K-cups, but yeah, I like that idea.
All right. Unless we have further comment, we'll move on to another agenda?
Yep.
Okay. Let's hit all the really fun stuff. We got a special event permit for the Ruggles Lane PTO Halloween Parade.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a good night, Sam.
Thank you, Sam, for taking the time to participate again.
Welcome, we'll see you again.
You got it.
The night football's kicking off.
I will finish this quickly then.
All right, so we don't have anything for that except for this document here from the planning board?
The one behind it, it's really never made information.
Oh, it's stapled to it.
Stapled to it.
Oh, okay, there we go. I don't see a specialist. Okay.
October 25th.
What day of the week is that?
October 25th.
Friday night.
Halloween's what, the following Thursday?
Yeah.
Must be, yeah. If we so deem it. We should talk about that. I think we
It's the
still
next
hold it.
agenda item. I just
I
meant,
still think we keep it, I like keeping it.
no,
on.
Halloween.
I like
meant
it
not
staying-
necessarily the event Halloween. I
I
just
like
meant Halloween is
I like
October
keeping it on the 31st.
31st.
A lot of people make it for the weekends and stuff. I like it staying on the 31st. I like it to be traditional.
But apparently they're trying to allow for children to stay up a little bit later,
Yes, they
enjoy
always
their
do.
time and not worry about school the next day.
They
So I
always do
can't
their-
fault them.
They always do their parade a few days ahead of Halloween. I think it's usually
they-
on a Friday, and it's fun. The kids go out, and the police and fire hand out glow sticks for them, and they march up and get their little
They
contest.
should
up at
reach out to
school.
the school committee and the school administration and say they should start giving the day after Halloween off.
There you go.
You always have those half days and things that they have to schedule anyway.
Do it, to teach a curriculum the day after. What a good idea.
Now all of a sudden in the future, every Halloween is an event in Barry. All the kids are staying out all the way to 8:30 every night.
Well, I would make a motion, we approve the use of town property or special event, if we're gonna call it, for Ruggles Lane for their Halloween parade.
I second the motion to approve this parade.
What is the date and time
The 25th.
October 25th, starting at, I believe,
6.
6 p.m.,
to 7.
estimated to end around 7.
We'll
It'll
line up in
be,
Broad Street. as usual, go up to Ruggles, turn right at Ruggles in the end and end up there.
Yep.
I believe they have their function in the school after, usually. I didn't read that there, but they usually have their little prizes for best costume for different age groups and things.
Okay. Next item is use of town property, very scary Halloween.
We didn't vote.
Oh, but we're not gonna get to that until I ask for a vote on the previous parade motion. So I'm calling for a vote on the parade motion to approve.
Aye.
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 All right, next agenda item. My apologies for the confusion.
Motion to approve the next agenda item, which is a request to use town property for very scary Halloween for the town administrator.
Second.
Yes, but I'd like to clarify so people do understand that this request is by the town to the town. The town administrator is requesting the use of, let's clarify, see how much he put in
Center
here.
Common, South Berry Common, Town Hall occupancy, and what else?
And the
Close the
roads in
roads.
between?
And the roads in between.
Okay, so we are looking to take over the center of town on October 31st.
And beat last year's attendance.
That's the goal.
And we are estimating 800 people, which will be completely dependent on the 800 people to show up. So that's why we're telling you now. Get the word out. This is gonna be better than last year.
And this is on October 31st on Halloween. This will be Halloween night.
Yeah. It will continue to be the trunk or treat. Pay attention to the advertisements. There will be requests and applications or whatever we do to say, yes, I'm gonna be there with a car and I'm gonna be handing out candies, etc. So,
Would you like to give an estimated start time for people to show that want to participate and for people to come?
5 o'clock, if you could get there for, we'll be shutting, the road down there, hopefully to start at 5:30 and go till 7:30.
okay.
My motion stands.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? One question. Are you looking for input, volunteers, and others to get involved?
As many people as we can get.
All right, I only brought it up to make sure everybody knows.
Okay.
The more involvement, generally the better.
Yes. We actually,
We can use it.
the Barry Women's Club actually reached out to me, and they're going to be doing a scarecrow making activity the week before. So they're going to be putting a bunch of scarecrows out on the town common. That should dress it up a little bit too.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
I'd say take a chance to reach out to Stetson too. They did, when I talked to them, they did indicate they might want to get involved and
Yep.
and put something out. Good thing for them. We know the fire department's going to be there. They already have some interesting costume ideas.
Very good.
All right, so I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Guys, look forward to this quite a bit.
Yeah, this is fun. It is fun.
I'm just down the street with my house decorated, so I don't make it up. Maybe I can sneak up some point this year. But
Next item is I believe we have a request from the town accountant to release, absolve, or identify certain ambulance collections as uncollectible. What is the appropriate term that she's, declare that
non-collectible.
a balance,
46,000.
okay, let me make sure I'm getting this right.
47,000.
These are balances that carried over from 2015 that have not been able to be collected.
Right.
In combined, they meet a total of $47,000 and change.
Closer to 48.
Correct. And she is declaring this amount non-collectible, requesting us declare this amount as non-collectible.
To write it off.
And
the
to write
books.
it off the
Close
books.
the books. It's been 4 years. I would tend to agree with that.
And thoughts, motions?
Motion to declare these funds uncollectible
Second that motion?
or non-collectible, as she specifically said. And so she may write them off.
I open up for further discussions. Just to clarify, if we make these considered non-collectible, is that where we then have to write a letter to them saying we no longer consider this a debt, but now they have to consider it an income as if we're giving them a gift back?
I don't know.
I believe so. I think it's just to write off our own books to say that we're not anticipating that as a receipt.
Okay, just to write off as in, this is a loss.
Yeah.
If we try to go the other way and send everyone a letter to saying they have to call to income, I mean, we really can't start following up with that, seeing what they've done with the IRS and if it did go that way, then the IRS wanted us to come back and start giving.
Well, I wasn't sure, because I've been
You know what I mean?
involved in previous business arrangements where when someone couldn't pay for a certain, then what happened was the other business partner actually wrote you something saying, okay, I don't expect you to pay me, but you have to claim this as income in
Right.
this year and pay taxes towards it.
I can see where.
And I
that
didn't know if
happened.
this is a similar thing because, but it's not the same because we're a municipality, so we're not paying income tax on the receivables.
Right,
So
and-
that might have been the difference.
And even still,
At
it's
least
not,
part of the difference.
it's not changing our reported income at all. You know, those receipts aren't reported as income, because as you know, we generate our next year's ambulance documents off of the current year receipts, so all it's done is kept our budget down over the years for the ambulance. If somehow this put money in our coffers and that we didn't really have, and we had to take it out, you want to account for it somewhere, but I don't think that's gonna be the case. And if it was, and someone had to go to court to testify on that behalf, we're just setting ourselves up for future obligations to
Okay.
Yeah,
to
we
try
know
to
that it's-
oblige someone to
yeah,
it.
we know we're not getting it, it's been hanging out there as a, hopefully.
Just get it off the books and get those things tabulated properly and closed off, and 4 years is
Okay.
plenty of time to try.
Cool.
Call for vote.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And the next are wage authorizations for Justin Meneers for the fire department.
Can we separate these, please?
That's why I just did that one.
I know, I'm just saying we just,
Oh, I
before you
gotcha.
go on, just stop it there.
Oh, because you're gonna tell someone no. I see, you're ready to say, no, you cannot work for this town.
Yeah,
I got you.
you got it.
But anyway, so Justin Meneers has been recommended by the chief of the fire department to become a firefighter. Proposed classification and step is FD2. Our salary is $15.97, and an on-call firefighter is the hours he's expected to work.
Yes.
Have a motion?
I move that we authorize the wages for Justin Meneers.
I second that. You abstaining? Well, I'll call for a vote. I'm abstaining.
Abstaining.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ellie. Done. This is a new hire, right? Not a
This is a new
step
hire,
thing?
yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes, it's actually at training tonight, meeting the guys.
Next would be, this is a step classification change?
This is
For
a-
Jenna, I mean, not Jenna Garvey,
Yeah, both, actually both.
Julia Palmer.
Yeah, both Julia and Mary are both at their 1 year anniversary dates, so it's just going from minimum
Just
step to step.
approval to say, yes, you have done this.
Yeah.
And we vetted and verified dates are accurate for this 1 year anniversary.
Correct, yes.
I make a motion to accept the wage authorization for Julia Palmer as submitted by Jenna Garvey, the acting director of the library.
Second motion.
Call for vote.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And technically, we have very limited ability to say no to that due to the relationship with the,
Library Commission.
thank you, yes. Is that what they're called, library commission?
I was just noticing I don't have the wage authorization for Mary in here.
Correct.
Yeah, we just said Julia, didn't have the other one. I knew he was saying too, I'm like, I only have one, so. The next thing I had was this,
Are we willing to take Andrew's word for it that Mary Markowski is just being presided a step, and he is validating that they have verified the dates for the anniversary step increase.
It's class 3, step 1, going up 4.5%.
I make a motion, we approve Mary, there we go, Markowski,
Yep,
for a step 1 salary now,
yep.
from her minimum.
It's actually it would actually be the same one, going from, actually, she's a step 1, yeah, so
She's going step 1 to step 2.
Step 1 and step 2?
Step min to, or
Step
step minimum M and to step 1M, so it's the difference in classification because Mary actually has a master's degree. So
Okay.
it's
Because she
actually,
gets a little bump with the
She
way that
gets a-
classification was revised this last.
right, so it's a 1% higher than the 750, so it's really like $18.
Okay.
So,
All right, so I will still make a motion that we approve her new step
Yep.
rate.
I will second that motion.
All right. For further discussion, just, these require the chairman's signature, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay, I'll follow up
yeah, I
with
have
getting
those.
that signed when it's ready.
That's fine.
Uh,
Yeah, I'll have the originals upstairs whenever
Okay.
they come in.
Call for a vote?
Aye.
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 All right, now the last agenda item between old business, new business is, we have a new applicant to be on the 250th anniversary committee. We have Megan Peddle, 121 Washburn, Berry, Mass. She is, related experience is Berry Historical Society, board member in event planning. Current and previous occupations, education, she has a bachelor's in history and a master's in public history. Currently, she's a manager at the Stone Cow Brewery. I will make a motion to appoint her to the 250th anniversary committee appointment.
Second?
Any further discussion?
I'm going to abstain from the vote as she is my supervisor at my day job.
Good enough. Any more? No?
No.
Call for vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Alrighty. Side of that, I have no Board of Selectmen update myself, like a particular Selectmen's report update. Do either of you two?
Just some of the things we skipped by, special events bylaw.
Oh, my
relining,
mistake.
are
I
we
did
looking at those, or we
speak to Andrew, and he had mentioned that
Just tabling them?
I don't
tabling
have
these
any-
right now would
Okay.
be,
Just double checking before we move past, just make sure
Yep.
that wasn't just an oversight.
you're correct, I'm sorry, I did not bring that up earlier.
The only thing I'd say is, that I was gonna ask about is if we've done anything with, looking into the relining of, the parking lot down. If there was any discussions made or any,
Here?
I figured that.
no, down at, across at Rice Park.
Oh, yeah,
We
because
talked
that
about
was
that
your thing, and
because-
this is, I got you.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if we wanted to discuss that DPW commission. That was,
Oh,
They
I
can
didn't-
confirm if it's a public road, right? So
Right.
while we're there, maybe we can ask.
Right, and what, I talked to former Chief Rogowski, and he'd indicated that at the time when that was repaved during the construction, that they had actually lined it. I didn't recall it being lined. He said they drew out a plan, they lined it to make sure that there was a fire lane in a right of way, because for the fire trucks to go, for example, down Route 62, they have to come up and interact with the traffic at the stop sign at the top of School Street. Then they have to go out to 122 and interact with the traffic. Then they have to cut across 122 to head down Route 62. And they interact and cross traffic patterns multiple times versus having a right-of-way for the fire department,
Go
having a
straight
fire
through
lane to
that
go
way.
straight through and down the hill. And he said that at the time they agreed, the selectmen agreed, and they lined it and spaced it accordingly. So that he said that there should be a plan, there should be, at least for that, fire lane, so it can't be blocked, which is what I indicated the other day. It was fully blocked with two dump trucks with long trailers with heavy equipment on them that you couldn't get through there unless you weaved through cars, and the fire department could not have made it through at that time. So if that was declared.
Can you follow up to because it ties a little bit to what you're saying is, did we get all of the as-built or record documents for the build-out, and did they make it to DPW, or who currently has that set?
Yeah,
Because that should show the striping plan you're talking
hoping to
about.
follow Jason on this, but unfortunately, we've been just kind of off schedule with one another in the last 2 weeks, so I haven't had an opportunity to follow up on the question.
Paul Cranston or Lester Paquin may also know, as they were kind of leading or having a lead role
Very
in the
involved.
common committee or
Right.
whatever it was. So they
Yeah,
may know
and
what came in and did it get to the right people.
I did find a copy of what was the phasing plan for it, and it showed basically that phase where that was being utilized as the right of way to avoid it, but it just didn't indicate whether or not it was the long-term plan to keep that as a right of way. So,
Okay.
But in any event, if it was set up, certainly it benefits everyone in town, the fire trucks, anything we go out to. And we have quite a few incidents, especially when the winter comes along that road in 62. There's a lot of valleys and hills and winding areas, and as the snow falls, first start coming in, that's when we tend to see our accidents down there. And it's important to have a quick response for some of these, as we noted a couple of years ago. It's nice to make sure that does stay clear. And especially when we get into plowing and people start to park there to get off the commons, that parking lot's full before every snowstorm. And we really need to have an idea where people should and shouldn't be.
Parking nose in facing the basketball court side by side is okay, but then all of a sudden people starting to park on the side because it's only clear
Anywhere.
paving, and all of a sudden you just block the whole travel
And
lane.
they just pull in and park right. And you come home at night, if you go up there now, you typically find there's been a car with Florida plates there for ages, for months. That's something that should be looked into. If they have Florida plates and they're living here now, they only have 2 weeks to change the registration over. Shouldn't be a car with Florida plates there for 2 months. But it's parking right in the middle of where you turn in off of 62 to come across that, what I believe should be the right of way. And it's always just dead smack in the middle of it. It's just a random car right where everybody would travel through.
And we may want to discuss municipal parking in general to find out if we need, or if there exists a bylaw that addresses
And that
what
parking-
appears to be, say, an abandoned vehicle in there, it's left alone for how long, at what point?
Well, it's
Should the
parked.
town feel
It goes and
comfortable to
comes
make an
back.
action?
It goes and comes back every day, it's not just there. It's
Oh, I
gone
thought
every
you were
day.
saying it was parked
No,
and
no.
just left
Every-
alone.
every-
I
every night,
misunderstood
every
what
night
you
it
meant.
shows up and it's there, it's gone all day, and it comes
Oh,
back every
okay.
night, it's in that area again. But no, there's a whole
I
lot
gotcha.
of.
Striping
parking.
would clear up the concern with whatever
Right,
it's doing.
and
all
the
right.
two edges of the grass that face the park area, you can certainly fit a lot of cars parking along there. And there's no reason you can't have a row along the street, and that should still leave room for a double row of cars down the middle. But as people just kind of park where they want, it's inefficient, and they don't fit otherwise, so it'd be smart to line it, it would
Yeah.
smart to be required by ADAs. If there's 25 spaces, you gotta have one handicap accessible. If there's 26, you need 2, up to 50 spaces, which means marked for handicap. And the
Yeah.
first one has to be van accessible and have a 11-foot space and a
That's when the parking lot is
5 foot
serving
clear
a
beside it.
particular facility, right?
I don't know if it covers the facility.
I don't know if
or-
you're required handicap parking space if it's not
It's not
intended to
accessing the
serve a
building.
specific access to a
And
building.
I don't know what we're gonna say there, because it is.
It could be for the park, and it could be
It is-
connected,
it-
saying,
it
oh, I
does-
should have a.
It does work, and there is still a sidewalk that goes down towards the park that's decrepit, and it goes so far down
Yeah,
and
but
stops.
when you get into
But I
ADA,
think-
you can't be more than 75 feet to the entrance of the building, or it's not considered the
Right,
handicap
so it
parking
wouldn't serve,
for
it
that.
wouldn't.
So
it
there's a
wouldn't
lot
serve
of,
here.
you're right.
But it could be for the park, just
And the
something
only
to
reason
look
I
at.
bring it
Parking
up
there
is
for the
it's
parades.
tough to put one
What's that?
in if
People-
now nobody's gonna use it.
People parking there for parades, events.
Oh, yeah, they park all over, everywhere, the grass and
Yeah, of
everything,
course.
and we gotta allow that. Same thing when Halloween comes, that parking, let me tell you, it is full, the grass is full. Which,
And we gotta figure out how to allow the temporary survive it. It's gonna be over in 2 hours.
Yeah, it's on.
And I don't mean that in a negative.
It's across
I just
the
don't know how to
miles.
better describe that
I never
situation.
complain about that. It's nice to see everyone participate and come, and I don't see any trouble leaving there. People are really good about it, but the day-to-day there is what we gotta look at. Just curious if we got anywhere with it. That's the only real.
Speaking of common, and this is more due to my ignorance. So someone out there might say, why even asking that? And then they're gonna get real mad at me. But Exchange Street, in front of, well, Becky's Bistro all the way down to
Mhm.
Taproot, I think, that section that has all the parking.
Right.
So in other words, between 122 and 62.
Right.
That
Earth is
section?
cement corrugated in there.
How much of that parking is completely towns? And how much of that parking actually has rights of way or some type of deeded right to the owners of the property?
I would guess it's all the towns, but I
Right,
don't
I mean, it
know.
was all.
Right,
municipally
but
funded.
then it comes down to how can people put out signs saying this parking is only for my business? It's been brought up, and I don't have good answers because we need to track whether the owner actually has the right to those. And I would like to follow up on that so I can just look at the paperwork and not worry about the rumor.
So we need to look at the assessor's office should have records and/or.
Actually, you need to look at the record documents I just said for the common, because
And-
that bill
and-
should identify all easements and rights of
And/or
way.
DPW, we should keep track of our roads and our properties, and like I said.
So we need all of that, so we
Concern I had
know.
before down there was some of these buildings have air conditioners hanging out over the sidewalk that aren't supported and aren't safe. They're held in. How many often do you see one gets pushed out of a window?
Worcester takes care of that because they have an ordinance that says if something's sticking over the right of way, public
Right.
right of way, then
And
DPW has a voice in the matter.
right, that's actually
I
part of
don't
the
think we have
It's
that.
a building code. The building code covers it, it dictates that, it falls under the.
Building code does not hit DPW and horizontal construction at all.
I'll have to look exactly where I found it, because I looked into this before to determine it, and the only thing.
No, that could be the case in a building, I got.
And the only thing that I found is that it comes to because it accesses the right of way, it falls under the town's jurisdiction, the Department of Public Works for sidewalks. So
Okay.
since it's overhanging a sidewalk, that's when that building in the code falls under the right of the DPW to cite it. And that's what I think I
Oh,
found
okay, I
out.
got you.
So I think that's why I found it through the code, because I was trying to look it up in code, and I found the only link I found to it would be Department of Public Works, to say that, that's a hazard over this public right of
Okay,
way.
so they just defer as the DPW as being the authority having jurisdiction.
Yes.
So if DPW says that's an issue, then whether there's a bylaw or not,
And it
they
only
can make
seems,
that comment and say, you need to do
it
something
only
about
seems
it.
the reason, if
Okay.
you have an air conditioning unit that's gonna hang out a window, there should be some sort of proper bracket supporting it. It shouldn't just be hanging on the window. And if somebody wants to do their house in their backyard, that's their business. But once it overhangs that sidewalk, and you look up there in the summertime, you see about 5 of them, and they're kind of precariously hanging out. All it takes is one person to make a simple mistake and lean on it, or a kid to lift a window, and someone's dead. It's an obvious, simple thing to avoid a potentially horrible tragedy, just
Yeah.
to make sure those are taken care of. But that's another issue with that right away. I mean, even if they own the building, regardless if they own the building, they've got to watch out for that public right away. And obviously, if we've
Okay.
cemented up to it and done sidewalks up to it, I would suspect that that's part of our project.
Okay. So the selectmen's report thing became a tangential discussion, but it really did start with looking, just to get back to the
General,
beginning, he
parking
was
in
asking
general,
about the
public
rice
right of way.
striping.
No, but it's all
and so-
relevant to the same thing. And
I just didn't want to get lost at the fact that that's actually what you started with, because I know I kind of helped deviate and go down the wrong.
right, well, we get
so-
into handicap access, we get into that, but you're right, and that's still parking, which I started with talking about lining and parking, and you're talking about exactly parking up there is the same thing. And a comment on that is I went up there, I was walking up there for the event in the Common last weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before. And I don't understand why there's 2 cement grids on either side. Deep groove corrugated, they're destroyed from plows already in the first year, they're already crumbling and coming apart.
Oh, you mean
Why on
the,
earth do we have those in there?
The
It's like the
triangles that were like this level, but then grooved
Yeah,
to try
but-
to direct traffic without just painting it?
I mean, behind the parking spaces on either side where Exchange Street is, Exchange Street's defined with parking spaces and a 3 or 4 foot wide corridor of concrete that is grooved heavily.
Oh, right.
And those grooves have all been cracked and torn up and shredded
I know
by
the story
plows.
of why they were put in.
I'd love to know it.
Okay.
And we should, and we should get rid of it.
It came up, my understanding is it came from DOT and the designers, because what happened is we put parking that runs perpendicular to, or even if it's at an angle, to
The
the
roadway.
path of travel, the roadway. And because of that, they didn't want people pulling in and then backing out. And so this was to indicate to someone when you're backing out that you're now entering the roadway.
Like
okay?
a rumble strip sort of thing? almost?
Kind of, except you're not going fast enough to get the rumble strip effect.
I'm sure you know.
And once it was all done, everybody said that was a waste of time and money and design, and I don't know why somebody did that, other than an engineer can say, I did that, I'm not at fault, when someone backs into another car. So my understanding is it probably came down to a black and white definition, and the engineer just said, do it because it protects my license. And we just had to accept it because we had too many regulatory authorities above us that did not allow the town to make that final decision.
I think it's time it goes away. It's being destroyed by
We
clouds.
gotta look at
and
how long we have until we can just come in and,
It's gonna be
make our own
decimated
decision.
worse, that, every year we plow and put salt on it, it's gonna get worse and worse, and then it's gonna become a hazard and a hole in the road or something else.
that's where you would like to see the details. Jason might know, cause he may have had the chance to see it, but how deep is that concrete pad? Is it a 4-inch pad?
Don't know, I have no idea.
Cause now
I
it's-
would
you gotta
ex-
remove the whole thing
I
to
would
then
expect what's in the
infill it,
roadway.
backfill it, and then pave it.
It's probably gonna be at least 4, if not 6. I mean, if it's in the roadway, it's gonna be pretty substantial, it's gonna.
And I'm with you, it's gonna be
have
4 to
rebar.
6.
It looks awful now, just walking over, looking at it, it actually looks awful. It's deteriorated, it looks like a 50-year-old sidewalk falling apart.
It was gone 6 months later.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse, so.
Similarly, we have a couple other things that are when you come up South Street, and then it forks in 3 different directions, and you get just these random concrete triangles that are intended for the same thing.
Yeah.
They were brought down rather than putting a curb down, because it was supposed to make it easier to plow. And it does sound like that would make it easier to plow, but then it's just deteriorating now and builds up stuff. So those are some things that I guess, if you don't mind helping us look up some of that's really where the record documents are gonna come in, or as-built, depending on whatever word they wanted to call it. So we know what they did and what they intended
The
of it.
project was a big undertaking. They took care of a lot of culverts and drainage issues, which were long overdue. We ended the flooding we had up in the library, repaved the loads. There's a lot of opposing opinions on whether or not it's an effective use and ineffective use of the roadways or the one-ways and things they've done. But it's been conceived and performed overall very well. And I don't want people to hear me picking apart a couple issues we have now as negative on the undertaking. It was a large project and done very professionally, very well, and in a timely manner. I just think there's a couple little things I'd like to see
Yeah,
amend when we can and tweak it.
I agree with that.
I don't want anyone to take my statements as detracting from what they accomplished with that committee and with that construction project. It went very smoothly for quite an undertaking. It really didn't impose on the town that badly as they did it either. So I don't want to have it construed negatively when I say that, but
I agree with you on that.
I just happened to walk by it the first time, really looked at it walking over it and said, oh God, that's gonna go.
So, do you have anything you want to bring up?
I've received a complaint about an old guardrail on the corner of 122 and Hancock Street, that one way. That's right before, it's on the other side of 122 on the way up to Carter Stevens on the left. It's, Evangelistus Farm is on the end of that short one way.
Okay.
And Sandy Evangelist told me about there was a guardrail on the corner that somebody went off the road years ago, hit, destroyed this guardrail. DOT, I think, came in and put in a new guardrail,
Yeah, I guess that would be.
but
yes,
the old one is sitting there, kind of like in the woods, and is an.
Oh, so it's just debris sitting there.
It's
It's not
debris.
connected as far as you know.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And it's an eyesore. She might have said it's potentially hazardous in some way. So she was just wondering. She's
Rusted, jagged
I'm
metal.
said that
surprised
she
with all
saw
the
that.
enterprising metal scrap collectors in town, no one's found that yet.
She said that she's brought it to various folks' attention over the years, and nothing's ever happened. So, I just
Okay.
wanted to put it on the camera here.
Sure, maybe we contact
I
DOT
appreciate
and
you
ask
bringing it
about
up. Yeah, we can just look at it, see what it is. Sometimes it's easier to handle it than try to chase someone else and ask them to
Yeah,
deal
well,
with
like I
it.
said, if it's scrap metal, I'm sure someone would grab it and haul it away for scrap money. And it's, but we need to just make sure that's the case before we do that.
Yeah.
I would think if it's been laying there for years, that is the case. If it's on the town property side of that, There's no reason we can't remove it.
Yeah. And currently, if it can fit on someone's truck, transfer station is still taking it for free. So it's not a cost to get rid of. And I know metal shouldn't cost to get rid of, but
Like I said, people grab it because they get money for it. So.
if they know where to go. So, thank you very much. I'll try to pay attention just so I can see it also when I drive by the next time. Just get my eyes on it.
I have one more thing as well. I ran into Brenda Rich. She said she was going to follow up with you with an email about the Boy Scout troop heading up or desiring to head up the Grove Street Extension.
Oh,
maintenance.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
did
I did receive a call from, I got a voicemail from her. I haven't had a chance to give her a call back yet, but she did indicate in her voicemail that the Boy Scouts will be taking over the Grove Street Extension maintenance as a continual Boy Scout project.
Nice.
Oh, that would be awesome. And we're kind of at that point where we got kind of the winter to really plan it out. So next spring, they'll hopefully be lined up. And just so everybody knows, that does not necessarily mean the Boy Scouts have the money to pay for the mulch, but they're willing to volunteer the labor. So the town is still interested in anybody that's working towards or willing to assist with the cost of the mulch. Under the volunteer concept, as Greg had mentioned before, but if we've got labor coming in, maybe we can look at some other people. I believe on average it's been right around about $1,000 a year for the mulch total for all. But it probably could be less if it was, you don't always have to do a complete bed of mulch every year. You just scrape off a little off the top, add some color.
This year it was overdue, as we said. It was
Right, so I'm just saying, I wouldn't expect it to be $1,000 every year, but who knows?
I did also take the opportunity over last week to drive through South Barry, drive up to School Street South, measure the distance from there down to Nornay Park, which is 0.2 of a mile, so it's 1,000 feet. Not an unreasonable distance to walk if somebody wants to play basketball and they're presumed to be going run around and exercising. So the benefit to putting another basketball court 1,000 feet.
Oh, you're saying High Plains down to Nornay is 0.2 of a mile?
1,000 feet. It's not worth even considering pushing another court down there, especially when there's resistance to it. I then did drive through Trafalgar Square and did notice at Mary Jane's house, the driveways are blocked with debris and junk to block her driveways, which is to me an eyesore out there, stuffed on both sides of the driveway, two-family with vehicles parked in the street directly opposing the basketball hoop, which is on someone's private property. You know, from what we heard from residents and from what I see driving through, it seems like that, you know, there's no action I would feel like we have any need to be involved in take down there. From what I witnessed, from what I observed driving through.
Understood.
And that includes looking for a site for a basketball hoop. Playground equipment, basketball hoop, 1,000 feet. If people want to utilize it, it's already there.
Do you have anything in the town administrator's report you would like to bring up, or just keep it for the record and let people read it as they choose?
Pretty much keep it as a record. I did post it on the social media today for people to take a look at. Just kind of an update as far as you know, projects that are ongoing. A few things that I didn't put in here. So I was looking at what we discussed last time about you know, improvements to road to let's say walkway access and signage for you know, around town, and trying to improve that access to the park over on High Plains. Looking at it, a lot of them are connected to the open space and recreation plans. Obviously, we're due for that. We'll be going after the small communities grant for open space and rec plans this fall. That will help with the technical assistance to put that together with the members that we had been able to get for that open space and recreation committee. Another opportunity that's out there is by Mass Development for their Commonwealth Places initiative, and you guys want to look through that, but it's basically up to $50,000 that Mass Development will match for specific projects that are basically community building type projects, and it's kind of a crowdsourced match program. So what they do is they look for the town to have a funding match, like like a $10,000 goal, and Mass Development would come in and say, if you can raise that $10,000 in 60 days, we'll match that $10,000 in funding. So that was just an outline of that program. I thought it was a couple good plans to at least look at if we want to go for either some sort of like wayfinding signage throughout town, or building a new sidewalk to connect that area. The other thing I started to look at today, and I just kind of been putting some feelers out on and doing some initial research on, was community energy aggregation program, and if that was something that the Board of Selectmen had any desire in pursuing. And basically, what it would be with that is that we would bulk purchase electricity for the entire community with the goal of reducing the cost compared to what the National Grid standard rate would be. There's a number of towns that have done it with some success. I know the Cape was was one of the first areas to do this, and they actually did this as a regional program. I think it might be beneficial to look at from a regional standpoint, considering the amount of regional programs we do, and reaching out to our neighbors to see if they have any interest in it. But I'm at least looking into it to see what some of the benefits and risks would be to that. Matt, I didn't know if you had any
Yes.
experience dealing with that with
My
Worcester?
department's actually doing that for Worcester right now. We've been going through it. It's doesn't happen fast. It's a negotiation with the utility company. It's not just an automatic, I'm gonna do this and here you go, National Grid, this is what I'm doing. So it's an involved process.
I would
But it
suspect-
does show, depending on the process, it actually can create revenues for the town, not the individuals, the town. And the individuals still gain their own benefit due to the mass procurement of all of the electric coming. Now, every member in the town has the right to opt out and say, "No, you know what? I know you can give me a cheaper one, but I want to buy this green energy supply over here, and that's my choice," and they can opt out. But what it comes down to is what you're saying is you're trying to get a price, quantity of scale price. And by bringing every residential and every business and every in the town of Berry into this program, you increase your quantity, therefore you can kind of better your scale. And so that's the intent in it. There's
a lot
Yeah.
a lot to it, and it was just I was doing some research on it in the last few days, and just wanted to see whether it was something that we wanted to pursue, especially from a regional perspective. So I did float an email out to DOER, CMRPC, just to try to get some information back on it to see, is there any towns out there that have really lost on this, or is it all just been,
either break even or you make something.
Right. I want to see kind of what has been out, what have the towns that have jumped into the scene, and whether or not it's just, I went through all this headache, and at the end of the day, we're saving a penny.
And
My
the
suspicion
Cape was
is-
regionalized though, so it was multiple towns.
Right, it was the entire Cape. It's the Cape.
Right, and it comes from the Cape Light
Mhm.
Company or whatever.
Right.
They're not municipal, but they're like a regional
Right.
municipal. They're
Cape
not
Com-
a National Grid
There's
power.
a Cape Light Compact, I think is what they call it.
There's a few towns that actually form their own electric companies, so they have their substation come in, they have their own electric company trucks, do their own pole service.
Right.
Once again, I know Groton is one of the towns that does that. And I would think if we're gonna do this, we become basically the supplier, where people right now, I don't know, I'm guessing here,
We're
Where
a
you have- you might have-
negotiator of the supplier.
Right, so
We're a.
There might be 6 suppliers out there, and the odds of negotiating down on National Grid, where they probably hold 90% of the contracts, and I don't know what percent they hold in town, but I suspect they hold most of the energies in town. Whether or not that's how we'd go, or we'd have to go to an alternate supplier to get that lower number. And then maybe National Grid participates if we have the threat of going somewhere else, but I'd be very curious of what obligations we have once we negotiate that supplying with maintenance. And if we go to a company other than National Grid, does that mean they have to service us in storms, or is
If
that?
you,
'Cause grid
just
is
to
not
clarify, your electricity bill is built on 2 portions,
Yes,
supply and distribution.
right.
Supply is a flat fee from any supplier in the country because of the grid connections. So you can buy power from a company in California or anything like that. You can buy it based on categories, you know, energy savings or just whatever you can give me because it's cheaper. So your maintenance, you have no maintenance of the grid or any parts or pieces out there if you get into a municipal aggregation plan.
So it's a transitioning
You're,
portion that pays that.
it's almost like you're a money market manager, except you only have one account, electricity supply. You're looking for the cheapest rate, you come into a contractual agreement with them based on the total number of kilowatts that everybody in the plan, so in the entire region, creates, and it's literally a quantity of scale. And you're just trying to sell for a lower price, but you brought everybody into the agreement. But now the town or the region does have to cover the administrative cost and the maintenance cost per se of keeping your records. You know, because you are negotiating this with everyone, so eventually you're also going to have to answer to everyone.
And typically,
So,
you know, what I was able to find is that, you know, the town, you know, once they decide that they want to go in this direction, then they contract with a broker that kind of handles a lot of that administrative end, where they're specializing in getting you that best price or at
Yeah.
whatever the energy mix that you want, and then filing the appropriate reports with DPU.
Yeah.
So,
And that's,
Yeah, so
I think the city of Worcester, one, because they're much larger, they have a bigger municipal personnel profile and all of that, may be looking to take on more of what our town or our region would just have the broker do for us. And because of that, they're looking at it saying there's a potential for a greater revenue to the city because they actually have personnel that can do some of the stuff you'd be paying a broker to do. Not all of it, I agree. They're gonna still, I'm
next.
pretty
next,
certain they're still using a
kind of
broker.
tongue in cheek, but kind of serious. We live in Worcester County. Can we be part of Worcester's region? Can we get in on their buy rate?
I probably, just to be honest, would have to step away from that, other than just bringing contact
I'm not
because of the two
suggesting
different
you do,
positions.
but I'm saying.
But it's a good
in
question, 'cause I
general,
don't know if they have that
As we're in
thought.
Worcester County, and it's the same county, I don't know how the grid breaks down. That's something Andrew could reach out and ask, is that a possibility that without getting too involved in ourselves, can we piggyback on them and they get that administrative fee from us and we still get a rate offer to the public that's
What I
without
can do
doing all
is-
that legwork?
I can ask my colleagues that are working in it, because they're in they're
Right.
working it
Is
now.
Is it a feasible?
And say, is this something the city of Worcester is even willing to consider? And if they are, I can let them contact you and then just step out of it.
Yeah. that's-
And if that's the case, I will. I'll
Right,
bring you
and
to.
So that would just be the.
You
thought.
already know, I've already contacted you with one of the people that I work with, and she's the same person.
Oh, okay. Easy.
So
There's a thought, before we get too
feel
involved.
free,
before
just
we
to
get-
contact her separately for any reason on your own, and I'll say no more. I
Before-
won't bring you together, because
Before
that
we
way
get
you
too
can.
involved, I think we ought to look at that possibility, because that legwork may be done for us, and may give us a good benefit without the required legwork and
Yeah, I mean, even the issuance of an RFP for an energy broker is optional because because that's an exemption under 30B. But because typically the brokers carry a 1 million, or was it 1/10 of a penny on every kilowatt is kind of like that standard fee that they get no matter who you go with. So
It
if
adds
you're
up.
gonna do an RFP, you're more looking at portfolio and what they've been able to achieve versus if you're gonna, if, you know, what they're actually charging.
Right, and if these companies
Right.
do this nationally, they've gotta be able, like you said, the transition portion won't change, so National Grid would still maintain the poles in town. But our service could be, the supplier could be in California or wherever, so, yeah, I would bet we could possibly get in, if Worcester was willing to.
Is this for
Look
everybody?
at
Yeah,
that.
you guys can
I
look
just
at this.
passed it to you
I
because
have-
I wasn't.
I know, I just didn't know if you had the copy. I don't want to take it.
I can make more, that's fine. I wanted to provide you guys with that information.
I'm not
let
gonna
you
get
know
into it right
that,
now.
um,
Would you touch on, a minute, your regionalization of sewer services from Hardwick, what's going on with that?
Yeah,
and
so.
just why it's on there?
So Hardwick had been under administrative order from Mass DEP to basically, correct some deficiencies that they had where they were actually, dumping raw sewage into the water system. So they were under an order to do this, feasibility study to see how, what options they had to correct. And they're working with, USDA, for some, you know, loan and grant funding to help, improve their systems. So they're looking at what all of their options are, and the first two options that they looked at, obviously, were keeping it in-house and improving the systems that were in line. But their third alternative was that they basically take what they have, and pretty much get out of the sewer business, interconnect the Wheelwright Water Pollution Control Facility up to Barry and integrate the Gilbertville system down to Ware. So from their preliminary,
Is that Eagle Hill? The where?
Eagle Hill has Gilbert.
They
goes to
go
Gilbert.
to where, yeah.
Right.
On that proposal.
So that would be, you know, that they have preliminary design plans, and I think I had sent you guys the email today that had the full scope of what they came up in the preliminary engineering
I started to look, it's
study.
181 pages, so I didn't get that far through it, that's why I wanted a quick synopsis.
So they saw the Berry connection to Wheelwright as being very viable. So they were interested in at least having a discussion between the boards of selectmen and the sewer commission to see, you know, what our questions are, whether or not we're receptive to it, if it's something that we're willing to pursue, and if the total grant funding, if that could improve, you know, be a benefit to us by picking up additional customers, but also improving the or doing significant capital improvements to our facilities.
Which, as we discussed earlier, are coming anyways.
Right, so
It might fit well.
it may be a good fit. So I at least want to let you guys know and, you know, kind of put it out there to say, you know, you want to coordinate a meeting between all three to try to get this ball rolling.
We need to talk about that with the commission first before we
Right.
have a three-way meeting, but
Right.
that's why I just started to read it, and I obviously it was gonna be very in-depth, so I didn't get a chance to enough, but I
I
thought
would
that's worth-
recommend, and maybe you've already done it though, is still share it with the sewer commission.
It's been shared, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can have a conversation and see if it's something they're willing to, if it fits their plan, or, but certainly if it does, it could be a win-win if there's grant money to help us retrofit or upgrade things, especially when we know a lot of the systems are 40, 50 years old around here. I mean, I don't know how old the whole system is, but we're getting to the point of needing to revitalize and rehab it and replace probably many components, and that might be a great way through grant money to put a new facility side by side to that, bigger, better, badder, and offline with one, online with a new one, and bring everything in at once. It might help us, especially if there's grant money involved.
Oh, I'm definitely interested in hearing what they have to offer, and it really, for me, it's gonna come down to the financials. I do like the idea, you know, if the financials work, I still like the idea of helping neighbors, and if working with us is gonna help Hardwick because they can't afford to do a complete upgrade of their own system because it's just not feasible. That's one of those things we should look at. Is there a way to make it work? I'm not saying there is, but it's definitely worth listening and finding out what we can do.
It's funny, you go back 100 years and towns were breaking off from the large towns, and smaller towns were breaking off from all those other communities. And now that, you know, as the years go on to find some of these resources, are better to pull back together.
We usually learn that that's bad, though, eventually, because once that system breaks down, now 5 towns have no sewer system.
Well, it's.
I'm just, you gotta be careful with this.
It's
There's a
important.
reason they broke
Well,
apart too.
It's
There's a
important when we
balance.
go down any of the paths and start talking about, like we did the planning, the cap, this is definitely falling to capital planning for the sewer department. And that's why I mentioned that in the sewer aspect of it, you know, to make sure that any steps we take, that we have a plan for the future. We don't just say it's a good idea, let's do it. We're gonna have a realistic lifespan of that, where the money's gonna come from, what that cost is gonna be, and how it's gonna impact the people in the future, and to make sure it is sustainable, not just obtainable.
Right.
But it's
Yeah, you
encouraging.
can connect, but
It's
in 10
encouraging.
years, we're all broke. Yeah, that won't work. Does anybody have anything else they want to bring up tonight? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Call for vote.
Aye.
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 Thank you much.
9 o'clock.